And we're live. Pep Talk Boys, joined today by the man himself, Mr. Kenny Ken. How are you?
I'm okay. How's things for you? How have you enjoyed your week of boxing? You see, it's been have you been anywhere
Very,
nice?
very good. I haven't been anywhere the past week or so, Kenny.
Not even to
I've
one of the big bouts. Did you go to Wembley Arena to see the boxer? Did you see that
I
great
wasn't at
performance?
Wembley Arena.
Did you see that great
I
performance
wasn't.
by Dan Aziz against Hosire and Burton? Did you see that?
I weren't there, but that was a great fight. I've been seeing them building that fight up for a long time. I thought that was a really good domestic
Did you
clash,
see?
and obviously
Did you see
Dan
Hosie's
Aziz.
Burton's podcast interview a few days before when he says that he called Lyndon Arthur and Anthony Yard a couple of mugs, and that he's after Boatsi, Callum Johnson, he's the next him and Aziz are the next in line for the like in terms of like the best light heavyweights in the country. Also included Callum Smith. So he's him and Dan Aziz last week were joint fourth, and then afterwards it was everyone else like fighters like Lyndon Arthur and Anthony Yard. I'm sure there was a bit of beef there previously between Jose Burton and my good friends Yard and Arthur. Mind you, I'm sure they would have watched his performance with interest.
Definitely, because for me, Dan Aziz is in that mix now. He's got to be in and around the mix. Certainly, maybe the loser of Yard Arthur 2 could go in and fight Dan Aziz for the British title. I think it'd be a great fight. And
Craig Richards as well, Spider as well.
Craig Richards.
Spider,
Callum Johnson's getting his chance now as well against Joe Smith Jr., which is great. Fantastic.
When they all fought with world titles, and we talk about if we take out Burton and Aziz, Spider's fought for a world title. Yard fought for a world title in Russia.
Yes.
And Callum Johnson fought for a world title as well. Got taken out.
Yep.
So, in terms of like the only person who's kind of missed out is Lyndon Arthur, and I think it's a situation where next Saturday he needs to get himself in a situation where he settles this once for all, and then Big Frank should put him in a world title fight. There's no excuse for holding the guy back.
I cannot wait for that fight next week.
Neither can I. I could see you rubbing your hands and everything. You know what I mean? BT Sport have actually done a good few features on their YouTube channel promoting that fight.
It's going to be, because it is a massive, massive domestic clash, and
with crowds this time,
it was probably with crowds in the Copper Box. I really like the Copper Box for boxing. Have you been to the Copper Box, Ken?
I've been to the XL Arena, and I've been to like the London Arena, but the Copper Box is more near Stratford, isn't it?
Yeah, I was surprised how close it is to West Ham Stadium.
The Copper Box. I've never been to the Copper Box, but I've been to fights in Newham, i.e. the XL Arena. So I've been there quite a few times.
Really good. Really good.
Well, you got no excuses. Have you managed to get yourself press pass for that?
No, I haven't yet. I've got.
What about a ticket?
No, I haven't got a ticket yet, but I'm working on it. I've got. I'm going down to there's a workout on Monday, which I've been invited to. So
which one? For Anthony Yards? Anthony?
I think it's for both. I think it's a media workout for both of them.
Anthony Yard's not too far from you anyway, because he does live around the Stratford area anyway.
No, and I think that was the second best domestic fight of the year.
Second to who? Second to who?
For me, second to Williams Eubank Jr. But I think now it looks like we're not getting that. But yeah, both great fights, but for me, Williams Eubank Jr. is all that more, a little bit more interesting for me.
There's rumours unconfirmed that Liam Williams has got an injury, so we'll find out in about 2 weeks' time. But the way I look at it as well is that I look at Liam Williams. He's talked a good game. He's trolled. He's got what he wanted. But, I think that's something if the fight's going on, I think that's something that me and you, yourself, and maybe Jay could break down. But I think there's something that you got to press with me regarding the pound per pound. Couldn't help noticing your titles, but, is Crawford now the number one fighter? Is Canelo still the number one fighter? Let's find out.
We'll get onto that in about 15 minutes, if that's all right, Ken, because Jay's going to join us at around 20 past 8. But just to know, what was your opinions overall on Terence Crawford versus Sean Porter on Saturday?
Well, I had it, when we spoke last week. I had it going down to points, and that it'd be winning by about 6 rounds. And people said, well, he's actually going to stop him. I said, I'm not sure. But then I looked at it. I looked at the 9th round, when the damage started, because the consensus of opinion now within boxing circles is that there's a debate on whether Kenny Porter did the right thing in stopping the fight, because people are saying, well, he shouldn't have been stopped, and that he robbed his son of going out on his shield. Was his son upset? His son said he don't want to disobey his father. But for me, myself, I think the damage was done in the 9th round, because if you looked at the 9th round, up until then, Porter was showing a lot of energy. Obviously, he was coming forward. He was trying to use the right hand against Terence Crawford's switch hitting. He didn't get through as much as he'd liked, but he was coming forward. He looked aggressive. He looked nimble. But in terms of Terence Crawford's defense was excellent. Plus, his head movement was very good. So there was only single shots and maybe the odd combo, but he wasn't catching Terence Crawford as much as he liked. But the go forward style would have got him some brownie points to the judges, because I know going into the night, some people had it even. Some people probably had Crawford by a round up. Other people probably had Porter up by about a round as well. That's what Porter was doing really well, is his aggressiveness, and he was coming forward, trying to cut off the ring, and giving everything all. And that's that. And sometimes the judges do like that. And what Crawford was doing, he's very good off the ropes, and he's very good at the back foot. He's one of the best back foot fighters I've seen for a long time. But I think in terms of the fight itself, the damage was done when Porter began to tire and ran out of ideas. Because if you look towards the end of the 9th round, he got caught with an uppercut, a left uppercut. And I think that after he got caught with the left uppercut, I think he was still feeling the effects of that punch. Comes into the 10th round, makes mistakes, low hands, in pain, probably concussed, boom, gets caught with a punch on the seat of his pants. And it was after that he got caught a combination. I thought if the referee let it carry on, the referee would have stopped it anyway in that round, because the fact that he got hurt in the 9th, then he had the 2 knockdowns, making mistakes, panicking. It was only a matter of time. His dad did the right thing. But for boxing, trying to sell that to boxing enthusiasts, boxing how do I say it, gladiatorial fans who like to see someone unconscious on the floor. I understand and respect the fact that it's a hard sell. Respect.
So, do you agree with Kenny Porter?
I agree.
In hindsight, do you agree with Kenny Porter?
Well, I agree with him at the time, not even with hindsight. The fact is,
really?
If people need to watch back the fight and watch the 9th round and see the punch he got caught with, clean uppercut on his chin, his head went back, and afterwards he was still feeling the effect. And after that, it was good night Vienna, and that's no exaggeration.
No, I think obviously we've seen Kenny Porter. We've seen Sean Porter rather with in so many great fights, haven't we? And all of his fights up to Crawford, all of his losses were 1 or 2 rounds from being wins. So if you look at Kell Brook, split decision. You look at Keith Thurman, he literally 1 round away from getting it. Errol Spence, split decision. So, and although he's always been a come forward warrior, I think rounds 9 and 10 showed that he was a warrior, but he weren't being calculated and calm in his approach like he was against Errol Spence. Because when he fought Errol Spence, he was coming forward, bringing the fight to Errol Spence, but it was calculated. But as we saw, especially after the first knockdown in round 10, it was becoming wild swings, and we never really see that with Sean Porter. And from Kenny Porter's standpoint, even if it was even, we now know that I think 2 of the judges had it 1 point to Crawford going into the 9th round. One of them had it 1 point. But that 10th round, if that had gone all the way, that's a 10-7 round. So now you've got to knock out Terence Crawford. And for me, that's not happening. So, and bearing in mind as well, that spoke about retirement before. That was a clear thing. So, yeah, I think live to fight another day. He's a fantastic analyst and TV broadcaster already.
Brilliant.
So,
one of the best.
Why would you want to risk? Why would you want to risk getting hurt? Worst thing could happen is brain damage, and then that career in broadcasting is gone before you've even started it fully.
The simple reason is that the most frustrated people in boxing are retired fighters. Fighters who every fighter, feels he's retired prematurely, especially when they see someone another fighter coming up who's a threat to their legacy. Ex-fighters are protective of their legacy. Sean Porter, we'll look at the welterweight division. He's only, 33, 34? He'll think, well...
I think he's actually 36.
Oh, Sean Porter?
Yeah.
I think he's about 30. Yeah, could be Sean Porter.
I'll have a look.
I think he's about 33, 34. He's still... And the thing about it now, a lot of... I look at these fighters.
Sorry.
Yes,
yeah,
these fighters are athletes. Tyson Fury is an athlete. Anthony Joshua's an athlete. Deontay Wilder's an athlete. They've always been athletic because they have to be to last that long. But now, the top fighters, spend money on personal chefs, even get sponsors. Even the fact that their sponsors pay these personal chefs to give them their food whilst they're in cap. Plus, you've got this. You now got the sports science, i.e., knowing your bodies. Working on your legs, getting straight from those legs, upper body. Not so much your upper body, but mostly they're giving you kind of a chest strength, so you can't be. So if someone tries to maul you, they can't be able to maul you because it's sometimes a wrestling match. So they're all highly tuned athletes. And they can go on for as long as they want because they're highly tuned athletes. So they're in better diets. And relatively, they haven't had the sort of concussive blows, that they haven't been in wars. So in that respect, I can understand why Sean Porter would have wanted to come back. But talking about, the whole situation about the fight itself, I'm all for that, going out in your shield, and I really, really respect it. But his dad, as his trainer, has to look at the whole situation. I think it was more like his dad, as his father saying, "No, you're getting humiliated, you're getting knocked out." So probably he's done it. But I think the thing that's puzzled a lot of fight fans, both sides of Atlantic, was his interview afterwards. He didn't do these things in training. He wasn't working hard enough in training. And I think when fight fans hear that, they say, well, you're his trainer as well as his dad. That's your fault. You're meant to make sure that he has that intensity, that he shouldn't, see if he can try to, save that intensity for the fight night. It has to be within training so they could take that into fight night. So again, a lot of people who disagree with my stance that it was the right decision are going to pick holes in everything that went on. You yourself, you may look at the whole situation and say, well, I agree. Kenny Porter had no right stopping that fight. I don't know where you stand with this.
Well, this is my honest opinion. So I actually didn't watch the fight live because I was away the weekend, right? I was I woke up the next morning, as you do. You try and stay away from the
result, big hard,
the result,
hard one.
But it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. So it gets to about Twitter.
Yeah,
exactly. If you've got the Sky Sports app or Twitter, then you get. And it's like, right. So here we go. Let's first. I was like, I'm probably not going to be able to watch the fight until Monday, but I watched round 10, and I watched round 10, and I kind of thought, okay, that's a bit premature. But then I watched the whole fight and thought, no, that's all right. Watching round 9, watching the way it was going, watching the way it started, and knowing how Crawford breaks down, and knowing what a great finisher Crawford is, then I completely changed my opinion. And if I was watching it live, I would have agreed with Kenny Porter.
Another thing as well. One thing people seem to realize, don't seem to sort of get, is that guy has got stupendous power in that left hand. The power is stupendous. I tell you, he can knock a mule down in that left hand, and that is the thing. When that left hand was getting through, and it was getting through clean, and he was hurt. That's another reason why I'm more than happy for the fight to be stopped. Because the thing about it, right, is that you could tell that when like I said, Crawford fights orthodox, you could tell that this guy's got a really strong power within his left arm, i.e. to produce a powerful orthodox jab and a powerful left hook come jab. So when he goes switch hitting, because there's natural power in there, and when he catches you clean, it's good night, mate. It's good night.
Yeah.
It's good night.
Yeah.
I mean,
like, even the shots that he landed on Porter were flush, but they weren't ones that he stepped into. You didn't get full leverage on those shots. But yeah, he's powerful, and he's got a way of using his skill to kind of just like, we say it with Canelo, and this is what's going to be interesting when it comes into the pound for pound discussion. But he really, I see it with Crawford, and I saw it with Crawford versus Brook. The first 1 or 2 rounds with Brook, you're kind of looking at Brook saying, all right, Crawford's probably winning the rounds, but Brook's having some success, but he's just allowing that to happen to just counter. The way he counters reminds me of very much like Sugar Ray Leonard. I've been watching quite a bit of Sugar Ray Leonard at the minute, and his straight counters fantastic. His hooks. I really love Terence Crawford. I think he's a fantastic fighter. But that being said, Kenny, where do you think he goes next?
It's a very good question because, like I said, I think he's second. I think he's second. I think he's second because I know the temptation is to put Usyk there because of what Usyk's done this year and what Usyk had to overcome at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and Usyk is a very, very, Jesus Christ, I think an excellent technician. He's an excellent technician. But when I look at Terence Crawford.
Crawford.
Not Sean. Sorry, Sean. Terence Crawford. I look at Terence Crawford and I look at a fighter who, if he fights orthodox, he's tremendous because the signature part should be the left hook. Yeah. And then when he switch hits, I don't see any weaknesses in his game. I don't see any weaknesses.
Who should he fight next, Ken? Who should he fight next?
Errol Spence Jr. because the public demand that. Errol Spence Jr. is another fighter that I have great admiration for, that I rate so highly. I really rate him highly, and I think that if anyone has got one thing Errol Spence Jr. could do to Terence Crawford is he's quick, and he's got tremendous skills. He's got great balance, great head movement, and he's got fast hands, and he's got deceptive power as well. And he does have deceptive power with the left hand as well. Not as hard as Porter, but what's happened right now is be very, very interesting. Fight, because I think would Terence Crawford try to trick him and go switch hitting, because Errol Spence Jr. Southpaw, isn't he?
Yes.
So
Yes.
as a Southpaw,
for me, Ken. Yeah. Sorry, carry on, Ken. Sorry.
No. But as a Southpaw, Southpaw to Southpaw, that'd be a very, very interesting fight. But for me, it's the fight that makes sense. I know some people are thinking of maybe Joshie Taylor further down the line, but I think in terms of I think Josh Taylor will be ready to fight Terence Crawford, because I rate Josh Taylor very, very highly, very highly. He's an excellent amateur. He's got good. He's fought some really good fights. He's been put in a deep end, and he's excelled. He's just got better and better. So I think this will be a very good fight for for my guy, Josh Taylor. But for me, the fight that makes sense to me has to be Errol Spence Jr. Like I said, it will
Jay Alby's in the waiting room. Sorry, Ken. Just going to get Jay in.
All right, Jay.
And
for me, it will sell tickets. It's paper. It is basically pay-per-view dynamite. Yep. There's no one in America who will not buy that fight. There's no way that fight won't sell here. You could actually even try and get it pay-per-view here.
I agree. I agree.
Would you be able to do that with Josh Taylor or any other fighters? Not really.
Josh Taylor, this guy, I think.
This guy, Errol Spence Jr., Terence Crawford, the fight that we've been talking about for a long time, 50-50, it's going to divide opinion. Any one of those guys, you could say, you can put the case for and against them winning or losing that fight. And it'll be subjective and it wouldn't be factual. But if you put Terence Crawford with any other fighter, your opinion could delve into factual, because there's levels where I think he's better than a lot of fighters, and I think he's better than Josh Taylor. And that Josh Taylor will come short against him.
Let's get Jay in. How are you, Jay? You all right?
All good, all good. You all good, Joe? Ken, you all good?
I'm all good, mate.
All good, mate.
Hey, have you heard of the interim? Have you heard of the interim? Get it, interim?
Yeah. Man United. No, all good.
Yeah, I know. What do you make of his performance, Jay, at the weekend, Terence Crawford?
Yeah, no, it was good. We all know Terence Crawford's a pound for pound champion, and he's done everything that he needed to do. I think every fight he's had at welterweight, he's stopped every opponent. So you can't argue with that. Since he stepped up from 140, he's just destroying people. And you could say the level of opponents haven't been great, but look, Bob Arum did promote him in the right way. That's why he's left, and he'll be looking for different challenges. It's difficult to say. I know, Ken, I think you were just saying there that Josh Taylor fight, what he could be having next, and I don't think that's definitely not going to happen. I don't think Josh Taylor is going to be challenging Terence Crawford for his first fight at 147, but I think he's left Bob to try and make the Errol Spence Jr. fight. I think that fight is a fight that they'll be trying to make. If not, I heard that he would like to fight Keith Thurman. I know Keith Thurman ain't fought for a long time, but that's probably someone that Terence Crawford would fight next. I would think someone around that sort of level. So yeah, it's interesting stuff. It was a good fight while it lasted. Obviously, I wanted Sean Porter to win, not because I didn't like Terence Crawford. I think he's great. I've just always been a big fan of Sean Porter, and I thought that as an underdog, it would have been great if he could have got a victory in what would have been probably his last fight, even if he won. As he said, I don't know if that would have been true, but I think by the end of the fight, you could see that it definitely was the last fight. He didn't really take too much damage. I know the couple of knockdowns that he took and that, but Sean Porter took a good beating in his time, and obviously everyone that the fight got stopped when it did. So I think him and his dad probably agreed that not to take too much damage, and get out while you can. So, yeah, but Crawford's got loads of options. It's just whether that the fight's going to be made.
So, in regards to Errol Spence, I actually disagree with both of you. I'll be honest. I'm looking at the welterweight division right now and seeing where it's at. Errol Spence, I want to have a fight back because he hasn't fought in now. We're heading up to a year. He fought Danny Garcia, but obviously had the inactivity before that. He's suffered retinal damage, so I want him to have a fight back. I know Keith Thurman says he's going to have 2 rebuild fights early next year, and then he's going to have a big fight at the end of next year. I heard an interview with him actually come out today with that. So I think if I was Terence Crawford, the fight I'd want to get quickly is your Dennis Ugas to get the WBA title. And whilst this is happening, we've got Errol Spence having a tune-up fight potentially against the likes. It's a hard one. It's a very, very hard one to pick a tune because he doesn't like tune-up fights. But I think before a Crawford fight, you can't just go in with Crawford after the big spells of inactivity. So I'm just gonna have a quick look at the rankings now and just have a quick nose.
The winner of Ortiz Avanesian.
That'll be later on. That's later on in my plan, Jay. So I'm thinking of. I've got it all figured out here. I'm thinking even someone just like. It's hard. It's very hard because there's. Where do you want to go? Maybe an Abel Ramos. I'm someone around that. So somewhere around that level, and so a solid opponent, a top 10 opponent for Errol Spence, and then because we don't think we're going to be getting Avanesian Ortiz till around. That's going to look probably going to be around May, June time because Ortiz has got a fight in January, February that he needs to get through first. So then while that's happening, and then after them two, that will make the undisputed fight because hopefully Crawford will come through Ugas, Spence with his IBF and WBC titles. Then we get undisputed winner fights the winner of Avanesian Ortiz Jr. I think that for me is a dream 2022. Will it happen? Definitely not. But yeah, I think Errol Spence definitely needs.
It sounds good. It sounds great.
Definitely needs a tune-up. Definitely needs a fight before Terence Crawford. Mainly so we get the best fight because that is probably the most anticipated fight in world boxing. I can't think of one bigger at the minute. I don't know if you can think of one bigger, but I don't think so. Certainly now AJ lost to Usyk. I think that's probably the biggest fight in boxing to be made.
Ken?
Biggest fight in terms of biggest fight in boxing?
Yeah, I think Errol Spence, Terence Crawford is. In world boxing, I think it's the biggest fight.
You know what? You know what? A certain person.
No, I've got to disagree. Ken, it's Jake Paul versus John Fury after yesterday's press conference. That's the most anticipated fight in boxing.
No, we'll deal with that another time. But in terms of I think a guy from Morecambe, I think a mate who lives in Morecambe will probably say that his fight, a potential fight with Usyk, will be bigger because of the fact that although people think that because of his size he'll just get a lorry over the smaller heavyweight. The elephant in the room is Usyk's skills and Usyk's ability to work his opponents out, and that actually Usyk has got more, in my opinion, skills than Tyson. But one thing about Tyson, and I think people underestimate Tyson, and they've found out in the last couple of 3 years is that he's got tremendous heart and warrior spirit, and I think that makes him harder to beat than previous when we saw him as the fastest moving heavyweight with great skills, hard to hit, good range of punches, good range of distance. But now he's got a warrior spirit as well, which is scary for any heavyweight, because you've got to contend with that as well as his skills.
I think it's very close, Ken, but I think globally, I still would have to say, it is Crawford Spence, because the welterweight is still the glamour division. The second glamour division, only the heavyweight division. Don't get me wrong, you've got 2 undefeated heavyweight champions, but I still think Crawford versus Spence, certainly in the US, is a much, much bigger fight, because
it's the USA is the biggest market, isn't it?
Pay-per-view stars. Yeah, they're both pay-per-view stars in the US.
Well,
More
I think,
Spence than Crawford.
Yeah, but I think, definitely, and that's the thing, and that's why Crawford has to look at that situation, and look at that situation and make a decision about who he wants, who he goes with, because the day, Bob Arum's sitting there, saying that that he can't promote Terence Crawford, blah blah. Why can't you promote him, Bob? You've been doing this thing. You've been doing this since I was a child. I remember when I was doing my GCSEs. You were a massive name in boxing. It was you. It was always you and Don King when I was doing my GCSEs. So why? What's changed now? You go. All right. I know you're in advanced years, but you're still putting yourself forward. You're still making big deals. So why couldn't you promote him, Bob? How? Why? How? Why? What? It's your job to promote him. It's not. You can't just say to fight, oh yeah, he's got to do this and that, unless Terence Crawford has refused to do certain things, then I'll take Bob's side. But if he hasn't refused, to do the interviews, to promote the fights here and there, then it's then the problem and the blame lies with you, Bob.
The only thing that I'd say on that is, yes, could he have been promoted better? Probably. But I didn't like Crawford's attitude when he was said that when he was asked about Bob Arum, and he said, "My job is to fight. Bob's job is to promote." I think in the 80s, yes, I'd agree with that, but I think we now live in an era where it is kind of the fighter's duty to self-promote as well.
Oh, you definitely.
The biggest stars in boxing, if you look at, the biggest star is a bit of an anomaly, which is Canelo, because he's just got the Mexicans behind him, a massive.
But does he actually promote?
Then you look at the biggest stars. That's what I'm saying. That's an anomaly.
He's cooperative because he does a lot of these, like I said, reels in show reels. But in terms of going out there, he probably doesn't need to, does he?
No. But when you look at the best of the rest, the Fury, best self-promoter. We're seeing it with Teofimo Lopez and his dad this week. Fantastic self-promoting. It's very, very good. But we'll move on now to talk about pound for pound top five.
Teo's dad does my nothing, though.
Oh, I love Teo's dad.
Teofimo Lopez is fantastic. He's
fantastic.
just a bit too much for me. I see what he does in that, but I just think you're a bit too much at the moment. But yeah, each to their own.
We'll get to the pound for pound top fives then. Go on,
behind every sportsman, there's always a pushy parent. You get in tennis a lot. You get in tennis, you even get it in football.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't mean the pushiness. I just mean he swears all the time, and just for me, sometimes it's just a bit too much. Obviously, he's great for as a dad and as a trainer and everything like that. I think he's great, but just the swearing quite.
Yeah, no, but we're gonna get we're going to get Ra in now. Ra's going to be joining us. And
Just a bit
we're
too
going to
much.
go for our pound
That's all, but
for pound top fives.
Oh, Ra. Can't wait
Ra,
to see him.
how are you?
Ra, I can't believe
All right,
you're
gents,
showing
how
your
are
face.
you?
I can't believe you're showing your face after what our Spurs played this week. Yeah, just half an hour ago. losing to Mora. I'm surprised. I think I would go in hiding if I was you.
hello.
Listen, it gets to the point where you just become shameless. I'm at that level now.
Where
You
is Ra?
fan. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I could hear you.
Yep.
I thought you took
Yeah.
me quite literally when I said you
No,
had
no.
to go and hiding.
I don't know how good my stream is, but yeah, I'm at the point when it comes to Spurs, I'm shameless. It's like we own it now, so it's all good. But listen, Kenny, apart from being a gooner, you're making my blood boil the way you're talking about Spence. Yeah.
Spence, I love Spence.
Yeah,
But
I know you do. I detest him. For me, it's like,
oh, okay.
it's like pretty much for the past 5 or 6 years, we've heard nothing about how wonderful Spence is, how he's the next greatest thing. And you know, people keep going on about Crawford's resume, it's shite academy. And to be fair, for a pound for pound candidate, it is shite. But look at Spence's resume. It's just as shite. Yeah. I mean, and the thing that's worse about Spence is Spence has been a pro for the same time as Anthony Joshua. I think they were at the same Olympics. Yeah. What's Spence done? So he's had 6 world title fights. Let's have a look at them. Crawford. Not Crawford. Brook, our own Kell Brook. On paper, great win because he came to his backyard. But in hindsight, I think we can agree Brook was damaged goods from boiling back down to welterweight, and his skull is clearly weakened by the weight making and by Golovkin's hooks. So not that great a win. A camper. Is he any better than Horn, who Crawford beat? Mikey Garcia, a blown up featherweight. Is that where Garcia started his career?
He was undisputed. Unified lightweight champion, though, wasn't he? And held his title.
He was. But Spence never came close to getting him out of there, and he's a much smaller man. And then he's had 2 good wins. Sean Porter, effectively, it was just the knockdown that done it, and Danny Garcia. So of his 6 world title fights, I'd say 2 of them were good. And he's a big welterweight, a career welterweight. Compare that to Crawford. He's a blown up lightweight. He's the 3 division champion, undisputed at the division below. And who has he fought at welterweight? Like I said, Horn, a huge welterweight. Benavidez, and he stopped both of them. Naturally much bigger men. Benavidez is now moved up to super welterweight. Sean Porter, first man to stop him. I mean, what's so great about Spence's resume that he consistently appears in pound for pound rankings? As far as I'm aware, Spence's whole reputation is based on the fact that apparently he gave a 40-year-old Mayweather a hard sparring session. So I just won. I mean, I think.
Come on, Ken. You got to.
Buddy's going to have to. He's going to have to sign up for. I want that fight next. I don't want no more warm-ups, no more tune-ups. I want Crawford to be done with this hype job out of Texas once and for all. Just
but come on, this
demolish
fight sells,
him and get him out of the scene.
But that fight does sell, innit? That fight does sell. Yeah, that fight sells, and it has to.
Interesting what you guys were saying. Is it the biggest fight in boxing? Do you mean what in terms of money or interest?
Global interest, I think.
For me, titles.
I don't think global
Yeah, I
interest
think
it is.
undisputed.
I don't think outside of America,
Yeah, but here, all right,
only hardcore fans know them both. Whereas, say, someone like.
But don't you think
Sorry, go on, Ken.
don't you think that the boxing capital? I consider the boxing capitals of the world to be the two markets, which is here, and the United States. And I think that, obviously in the United States there's a rivalry, obviously, because of the rivalry. And I think in this country, I think the fight does sell because, we have seen, had a good look at both the fights. Obviously, we know Errol Spence because of what he did to, Kell Brook in Sheffield 4 years ago. One thing I do agree with you, though, in terms of the fights, the inactivity, I get that up to the point. I agree with you in terms of, like, there's not much activity in terms of, like, him, going out and, fighting. In terms of, like, I do see more activity from Crawford. But I just feel that, in terms of, like, one thing Crawford does have over Errol Spence is that left hand. The left hand is like a bazooka. But in terms of like other attributes, I still call it a 50-50 fight. But we're only going to find that
top
fight.
5 pound for pound.
Crawford
but we'll get to that then. Let's go to the pound for pound top 5. What we'll do is we'll each go round from we'll all start at 5, then go in ascending order up to 1, and we'll see what we think the pound for pound top 5 is, because I was watching a really good analysis on what the pound for pound means, and so many people have different interpretations of it, whether it is to do with resume or the eye test, the skill, because that was a lot around the whole Manny Pacquiao the Mayweather thing back in the day. Is it the eye test? Is it the skill? Is it the resume? When Mayweather left, then come back, does he go back to number 1? It's a lot said, but so we'll go from 5 and work our way to 1. We'll work our way around. I'll start off then with number 5. My number 5 is Josh Taylor, because undisputed 140 pounder, cleaned up the division, can't do anything more. And I think it's time for some super fights at 147. Or if T.O. moves up to 140, I'd completely love that. But yeah, my number 5 is Josh Taylor. Jay, who's your number 5?
Is it just males, yeah? Male fighters or both?
Just males.
No, males. No. There's no opportunities here.
Just males. Okay, so we're doing all right, my male one. Number 5 would be. Sorry, it would be Josh Taylor as well. I'm not just saying it. He would be my number 5. Just because for my criteria, you got to be either undisputed or had a very long unbeaten run at world level, or won multiple weight titles. And to be an undisputed world champion, you've got to be in the top 5 for me, because it's one of the hardest feats you can do in boxing, and to do it in such a short amount of time is incredible. So yeah, that's my reasons for Josh Taylor. Sorry to follow suit with Joe, but
that's all right.
That's just the way it is for me at the moment. So yeah, Josh Taylor for me is number 5, as is the undisputed unbeaten champion.
Kenny, your number 5?
Well, the thing is, right, it's hard to argue with what you said, because you're talking about the fact that he's got the gongs, like the belts and everything. But in terms of like Josh Taylor as well, it's how quick he's done it, because he hasn't. How many fights he had? Has he had about 18, 19 fights?
Yeah,
and he's managed to clean up the division.
I think it's
18 fights. He's managed to clean up the division. Most importantly, as well, is that I do like the names that he's So, to be honest, it's hard. It's hard to sort of disagree with what you're saying.
Yeah. So you've gone for number 5 as well?
One thing I would say: does the criteria have to be undisputed or multi-belt champ?
No,
it's completely up to you, Ken. It's whatever your interpretation of the pound for pound list is. So we've got Kenny with number 5. Ra, Your number 5?
I'll go for Naoya Inoue.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, my criteria is how you do relative to the fighters at your size, but I also take into consideration things like what form the top level fighters were in when you beat them. So, for example, beating a 40-year-old Pacquiao isn't as impressive as beating a 30-year-old Pacquiao, for example.
Agreed.
Fighting guys who at the first bell outweigh you by 10, 20, 15, whatever pounds is more impressive than if you're beating guys when you outweigh them by 10 or 20 pounds. So I think size is also an issue for me, because when you got a size disadvantage, as a lot of these multi-weight champions end up having, their skill is compensating for their lack of size, which is more impressive.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'll be talking about Inoue a bit later on in my list, but you've got Inoue at number 5. At number 4, it was very close between number 4 and number 3, but for me, I've got the unified heavyweight champion of the world, Alexander Usyk. Yeah, he's at number 4 for me. I think he left my top 10 when he moved up to heavyweight, because for me it is all about skill, but could he transfer that skill up to heavyweight? Because he was in my top 3 pound for pound when he did beat Tony Bellew. After that fight, he was in my top 3, but obviously the way boxing's evolved, as he comes back, he's come back at number 4. But I think obviously the skill, I think he is building a resume now, obviously after the World Boxing Super Series, and then gone and beat arguably the second best heavyweight in the world, easily in the top 3 or 4 in Anthony Joshua. He's just shown that he's transferred that weight. He can form a game plan and has got all the skill to prove himself as a pound for pound top 5 candidate. Jay, your number 4?
I'll have to say Inoue as well. I think he's definitely got to be in the top 5. He's my number 4. For the weight category that he's at, to have that much power, they say at the littler weights, it's more about being fast, erratic boxing, not normally about the power. And this guy's got unbelievable power. He's known as the monster. And yeah, I can't really argue with him not being in the top 5, as Ra said. What some fighters do at the level that they're fighting at, and he's absolutely destroying fighters. I've got to say, his fight against Donaire was absolutely fantastic. I love Donaire. He's an absolute veteran, legend. And after that fight, I thought, props to both men. And yeah, Inoue's definitely in my top 5, so he's number 4.
Fantastic. Kenny, your number 4?
My number 4 is the Gypsy King. The reason why I'm putting the Gypsy King in these categories, it's probably controversial, because I know that probably 2 out of 3 of the panel, and is going to look at it and say, why you put the Gypsy King in there? Are you putting the Gypsy King on reputation, i.e., because we think that the Gypsy King is unbeatable at heavyweight at this level, and that the Gypsy King, because of the fact that he's beaten the hardest punching heavyweight of his time, and then went to Germany and ripped the title away from one of the Klitschko brothers, Vladimir. Why am I putting him in? But the reason why I'm putting him in is because I'm putting him in because there's something extra that he's brought to the table that, I took for granted. We all know about the Gypsy King's, skills, the fact that he gets his distances right, his feet are beautiful, his head move is excellent, his jab and double jab is super fast, and he's got a range of punches. One thing, we left out that I didn't realise that he had, and which is probably going to make him a lot more difficult to beat, is his heart and his ability, and the fact that he's brought some ferocity into his game. And those like I said, getting those becoming the sort of Ring Magazine champion, you know, against what we thought was the odds. Although a lot of people say that Deontay Wilder can't box, but also the lineal heavyweight champion. Plus, you know, ability all along. I have to put the Gypsy King there, and I'm a massive fan as well.
Fantastic. I'm a massive fan. He isn't in my list, unfortunately, but he makes a top 10 for me.
I think the reason why it's a controversial is because I actually agree with a lot of people where they say, "Well, hang on here, he doesn't defend his titles, and then you know, and he hasn't cleaned up the division." So I do respect that. I do get that, and I do agree with it up to a point. But on what he's done in his career and the performances, because he's actually another arsenal into his, you know, sort of another weapon into his arsenal. I think, I'm going to sneak him in.
Okay, that's perfectly justified there. Fantastic justification. Ra, you're number 4, please.
I'm going to go for Josh Taylor. I think he's cleaned up a division by dethroning 3 other champions, which is
I love that,
more than say what Tio did, which is win 1 belt. And was the Comey fight a vacant belt? I can't remember. But then if you pick up 3 other belts, say, from a fighter that's already unified, I don't think that's as impressive as picking them all off one by one, because it might just have been a lucky night you had. And I somewhat suspect that if Loma and Tio rematched, Loma would win it. Put it this way, if we still had 15 rounds, I think Loma would have won the first one. But anyway, that's by the by. I do think Tio's been living off. He's been dining out on that win for far too long. And so, that's why I would put Josh's undisputed status ahead of Tio's, which isn't really undisputed, or is it? I mean, Jose Suleiman can't make his mind up, so we won't go there. But I think what Josh Taylor's done, and I think, as Jay said, in the time frame, I mean, what was it? Just over a dozen fights as a pro. That's extraordinary, I think.
Well, he won his first title, I think, against who was it against? I think it was Baranchik, wasn't it?
Baranchik.
In the May. I think that was in the May, because that was the same night as Billy Joe Asufi. And then, obviously, late October, he unified against Prograis. Pandemic slowed everything down. He had the first round knockout of his mandatory. He got his mandatory out of the way and then went straight into the undisputed. Very much like Canelo's rise, and I'm sure we'll all be talking about Canelo in a little bit. But so now moving on to number 3, and narrowly beating Alexander Usyk for me is Naoya Inoue, the monster. I think he can move up and down weight divisions seamlessly as it seems. He skipped weight divisions to get a world title there in order to enter the World Boxing Super Series. And when he got to the World Super Series, he showed his monster-like nature, for lack of a better expression, in the first 2 rounds by first and second round KOs. And then when it comes to the final against your seasoned, hardened athlete in Nonito Donaire, he rushed him early on. He got caught and showed that he can actually box, which for me was the deciding factor to put him higher than Alexander Usyk at the minute, because he didn't just rely on his heavy power. He showed he could box, and he boxed with with retina damage. And we've seen in recent months and years that fighters obviously don't go on to fight with retina damage. They don't go on to finish the fight, as we've seen with Daniel Dubois, Kell Brook, and Billy Joe Saunders, most notably. So to carry on for, I think it was 9.5 rounds with that injury and outpoint Nonito Donaire, I think is absolutely brilliant, and that's why he is my number 3. Jay, who you got at number 3?
Well, number 3 for me is the Gypsy King, Tyson Fury.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, might be a dubious decision. I'm not sure. It's my personal opinion, I've gone for the Gypsy King at 3 just because. Look, he done great stuff. He beat Vladimir Klitschko. Of 3 fights with Wilder. But for poundage, you've got to defend your world title at least once, or maybe become undisputed, or something like that. Or as Ra said, gone through each champion to become undisputed. That's a great feat. Going through 3 different title challengers and world title holders in their own right. But for Tyson, what he's done is great. I love Tyson Fury, a beautiful boxer. As Kenny says, he's shown a lot of heart and a lot of grit in his last couple of fights. But for me, you've got to go on credentials a little bit. And as I say, he's not defended a world title, so I don't want to put him in 1 or 2. But number 3 is great. To be number 3 in the pound for pound list out of thousands of boxers is still great. So for me, it's the Gypsy King, Tyson Fury. If you don't disagree or agree, that's great. But I just can't put him in the top 2 when he hasn't defended a world title for me. That's all I can say. But yeah, so Gypsy King number 3.
Okay, we'll go round in the same order. Kenny, your number 3?
My number 3 is Alexander Usyk. The reason why he's my number 3 is because for me, to clean up at cruiserweight level, all the way it's phenomenal, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that because the cruiserweight division isn't the glamour positions like the welterweights, the lightweights, the super middleweights.
Agreed.
And all the way up to the heavyweight, which I call the blue ribbon division. But to clean up there, beat some good champions as well. Also beat Tony Bellew. Hang on, I could hear some background noise. Yeah, guys, can you hear me?
Yep, got you, Ken.
Yeah, because I thought I could hear some noise in the background. I thought I heard my voice in the background. Sorry about that. But anyway, then to go to the heavyweight division, I can hear myself again. All right, to go to to basically I can still hear myself. All right, let me just come in and out again. I'll come in and out again. I'll come back.
Someone might be playing it out loud. One sec. We'll just get Kenny with his Alexander Usyk at number 3. Hang on. He'll be back. He will be back.
I'm going to go.
Yeah, someone, if anyone just is playing it, just turn it down if that's all right.
Oh, I'm not good at all.
Let me just come in and out again. I'll come in and out again. I'll come back.
Ra, have you got it on, mate?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, are you listening to the have you got the live on as well?
Oh, I've switched it off now. I didn't know if it was a problem.
Cheers, mate. Just because it's feeding back to us. No worries. Cheers, mate. We sorted the problem. No worries. Ken, carry on with Alexander Usyk.
Yeah, so basically, his first couple of fights didn't show us much. Fought Derek Chisora, managed to not show us too much. But that performance against Anthony Joshua, at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, was probably one of the best performances I've seen from a fighter coming to dethrone the man with the belt. Because one of the things I liked about Usyk is the fact that he fought very well on the back foot. But I said to him, on his show before, and I've said it many times, the only way Usyk is going to win this fight against Anthony Joshua is if he engaged with AJ and gave AJ something to think about, and he did that. In the early rounds, the backhand punches, which took one of them nearly took AJ's head off, and to be able to meet AJ in the centre of the ring and outfight him in some instances. To stand up. Don't get me wrong, AJ made mistakes. AJ, bought into the fact that if you're fighting a southpaw fighter, the best punch is the right hand, the straight right hand, which in a way it is. But there has to be a situation where something's got to come behind that right hand, where you've got to get inside and do his combinations. And to actually give AJ no angles to do his combinations, especially the finisher uppercut. That is ring craft at its best. You know, and you know, he's
100%.
so for me, he has to be in it. And one more point as well. Boxing purists could argue that if he was to fight AJ, he may win the rematch. And then if say Tyson Fury beats whoever he's going to fight, hopefully it's Dillian White, that, you know, he wouldn't be perverse to suggest that Usyk will be the first fighter to beat Gypsy King in the ring. Not so much knockout, but definitely on points. You could argue that point.
Wow. Yeah, personally, I don't think that would happen, Kenny, but that's a whole other topic for a whole other day.
That's a whole other topic. But you could never say never in boxing because, you know, Usyk has a skill set, and I think that he has a slightly better skill set than the Gypsy King. But maybe, who knows?
Yeah, so do I. I think he has a better skill set, but I think just size does him in that one. I think.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think Ra's going to agree with you because Ra's theme is size doesn't always matter in the heavyweight division.
Go on, Ra. What do you think? If Usyk and Fury went face to face, who'd come out on top?
Usyk. For me, the man. There's two fighters that can dethrone the Gypsy King. Usyk's one of them, and Michael Hunter's the other. I've always
Michael Hunter.
I've always had the opinion that small heavyweights are what the Gypsy King struggles with. I think he's even admitted so.
I think you've been helped by Tottenham getting defeated tonight.
All right.
I think you're rattled, mate. I think it shook you a little bit. The bounty hunter, the guy doesn't even take a bounty. Nah,
listen,
that guy.
Listen, I'll accept he bottled the Hrgovic fight, no doubt about it. But I do think that if he ever gets the Gypsy King in the ring, I think he can dethrone him and Usyk as well. Because ever since Fury's come back, he's been so keen to fight big lumbering heavyweights, and whenever people ask him about these smaller guys, he tends to shy away from it. And you know, he never really talks about the fight he had with Hunter in the amateurs. He doesn't really want to talk about it. I think he knows. He knows that those smaller heavyweights, they can do what your Joshuas, your Wilders, the whole motley bunch of these big lumbering heavyweights. What
about Andy Ruiz?
Andy Ruiz is a short heavyweight. That's not the same as being a small heavyweight.
Yeah, but he's got the speed, though, hasn't he?
His foot speed is too slow, and his head movement is non-existent. But Hunter and
do
Usyk,
you think Michael Hunter beats Andy Ruiz?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
No.
I respect your opinion, Raj. I respect it.
I think Hunter is going to.
Okay, we'll move on. Go on, Rob.
Anyway, sorry. Yeah, we'll move on.
That's your number three yet?
I haven't made my number 3. No.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Me,
we'll get
it's Michael Hunter. Number 3 is Michael Hunter.
Right. Let's see.
Yeah. No, that's Ra's number 1, Michael Hunter.
Oh yeah.
Yes, you're number 3, Ra. Sorry.
My number 3 is Terence Crawford, 3-weight world champion. Weren't great at lightweight. Was great at super lightweight. I know what people will say that he didn't have the opposition, blah blah blah. But the fact is, in modern times, the 4-belt era, there's only a handful of men that have unified. That counts for something. And then at welterweight, he's beating huge welterweights conclusively. And I would say his resume at welterweight, as we were saying about Spence, it's on a par with Spence's.
Yep.
Whilst having a size disadvantage. And if he becomes undisputed at welterweight, I think we agree that it's the toughest division. I think he'll be number 1. But yeah, if he beats Spence, I'd say he's number 1. I don't think he needs to pick up that final WBA super or regular, whatever it is that UGAS holds.
Yeah. I agree with you there. I think if he beats Spence, he's the number one in the division without being disputed. No, that's a great shout. I think Terence Crawford is a great fighter. I think Joe's bouncing in and out.
Terence Crawford,
Joe's
number
back.
3. I think I'm hoping we might see Crawford elsewhere on the thing, but number 2 for me is Terence Crawford. But I will say, he was very, 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 very close to being my number 1. It was. I've been thinking of.
Have I lost you guys?
Nope.
Or just Joe?
No, I can still hear you.
No.
I think.
I think so. I think.
Sorry,
Joe
am I back?
Yeah, you're back. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
Joe's
Sorry,
back.
I focus more on the eye test and the skills more than the resume, because you could be the greatest ever boxer, and there might not be anyone in the fight. So I think that's unfair when it comes to the pound for pound. But looking at both styles, and you do have to take it in for some consideration, I know.
We lost him again. Hello, guys.
Yeah,
we lost.
I got you, Kenny.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, it's just Joe. Yeah, we're
Joe,
still
yeah,
good.
we've lost Joe,
We're
innit?
still good. Hopefully.
Must
Well, we'll
be
go to my
Canelo,
number 2
or
anyway.
someone like that. Yeah,
well,
you're
my number 2, no, right. You know what? Yeah, well, look, it might surprise a lot of people, might not. Obviously, I said the categories earlier. People who can fight in different weight categories. This person has fought different sports people. He's fought NBA fighters. He's fought MMA fighters. Jake Paul, 4-0, is my pound for pound number 2 fighter.
Joe's back.
So yeah,
Joe's back, by the way. Joe's back, by the way.
Yeah, Joe's missed out on number 2. Joe's missed out on number 2. But my number 2 is Jake Paul, 4-0. He's fought NBA fighters. He's fought MMA fighters. He's going to fight a boxer. After that, he might be 1. But no, all seriousness, no. My number 2 is Canelo. No, not Canelo. Sorry, right, you put me off. Number 2 is Usyk. After beating Anthony Joshua, I'll agree with Joe. He wasn't even in my top 5 before the heavyweight. Yeah, before he fought Joshua, he wasn't in the top 5. I think the Del Boy fight was great. But then when you beat a beast like Anthony Joshua for 3 of the 4 world titles, a big fight in the United Kingdom, how can you not? Do you know what I mean? I think it was a great performance. He could have stopped AJ in the later rounds. You see in round 12, if there was another 30 seconds to a minute there, I think he probably would have took him out. And look, the guy was undisputed cruiserweight champion, like Evander Holyfield. Now he's a world champion at heavyweight. He's a great guy as well. Let's be real. I absolutely think Usyk's a great character, great human being. I'd had no hard feelings the day after AJ lost, and everyone knows how much I love AJ because Usyk's such a great guy. You don't mind losing to someone like that. So full respect to him. I think he's an absolute genius. I agree. He could beat Tyson Fury. Look, there's a great possibility that you can't just disregard a Olympic gold medalist, an undisputed cruiserweight champion, and a world heavyweight champion. So look, you got to give the man credit, and I think he deserves to be number 2 in my opinion. So yeah, Alexander Usyk is number 2 in my pound for pound list.
Kenny, your number 2?
My number 2 is Bud Crawford, because one of the things I like about Bud Crawford as well is his ability. I love the fact that, you know, normally I have very little time for switch hitters, but this is a switch hitter who can actually fight and isn't just a show pony. You know, he's effective as an orthodox fighter, and he's effective as a southpaw, and that left hand is like a bazooka. But it's not just that as well. You know, I think we all know who our number 1s could be, but it's similar to my number 1. He's one of those fighters who is basically he's on an education course when he is in a fight. he has no reason to panic when he's losing rounds, because it's always about the end game. What is this guy good at? All right, he's good at this, but he's not good at that. So I'm going to find out what this guy isn't good at, and I'm going to punish this guy in a way that he's not expecting. And the things he's good at, I'm going to use my impeccable defence. He's got a very, very good defence. If you look last week when Sean Paul was coming forward, being very aggressive, very, very athletic, he threw loads of punches, but it was the odd one that was getting through because of his impeccable defence. And he's got good feet as well. Most importantly as well, he's cleaned up divisions. The only fight that matters is going to be Errol Spence Jr. But I do think that he's the kind of fighter who's going to probably follow Joe Calzaghe and Floyd Mayweather Jr. as undefeated fighters. That I look at him and I see someone who's not going to lose a professional bout. Never say never, but
it depends how far he goes up, I think.
Yeah, but he does come into that category as one of those fighters that's going to retire undefeated. Perfect record. So he's got to go my number 2.
Fantastic. Kenny's number 2. Before we get to the number 1s, Ra, your number 2?
My number 2 is Alexander Usyk, for much of the same reasons that Jay's already said. I do think the jump from cruiserweight to heavyweight is a size difference which is considerably harder to overcome than most others.
Agreed.
Because, you go from bantamweight to super bantamweight, it's really just that you're a bit older and you can't make weight anymore. But even without boiling off the weight, Usyk is still hugely outsized by a big heavyweight like Anthony Joshua. I'd still keep him as number 2. If he was to dethrone the Gypsy King, as I'm predicting, I think he's at number 1.
Yeah.
Irrespective of what Crawford and Canelo do in the meantime.
No, I agree. That's a great point there, Ra. I think if he does manage to do that and outpoint the Gypsy King, then I think he would go to number 1. But my number 1, as I'm sure it will be a popular opinion, is Canelo Alvarez. We've spoken about Canelo so many times on here, so I'm just going to say Canelo. I'll let everyone else do the speaking about him. And Jay, your number 1?
Yeah, Canelo. It's going to be. I'm not going to argue that he's been through multiple weight classes, and look, it's an easy decision for me. I don't think anyone can really argue with it. I'm sure Ra will make an argument not to have Canelo. I'm looking forward to see if he's got the bounty Michael Hunter as number 1. But Canelo all day long.
Kenny?
It's got to be Canelo, because the simple reason is that one I think probably the best thing that's ever happened to him was 2 things. One, learning from the Mayweather defeat, but going in with Triple G and going in a situation where I thought personally he lost the first fight. I'm not convinced he won the second fight either. But to go into those fights, to actually absorb that power, those power punches from Triple G, to the extent that he's frustrated him, to come away from that. And ever since he's fought Triple G, his levels of performance has gone up, 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 up. And one thing we underestimate about Canelo as well, he has power as well. And one thing as well, he's got ring intelligence. There's no doubt that his official records. I don't know how many fights they say he's had an official record. Whatever his official record is, I'm sure he's probably fought 20 more times. Yeah, I think he's fought 80 times. I think there's some fights that haven't been registered because he's probably underaged. But either way, to go into that situation where you've got power, and that power can be taken up the weights to a certain extent, that you're going at light heavyweight, and you're fighting a very hard puncher in Kovalev, knocking him out. Callum Smith, obviously we know he throws, but Callum Smith has got advantages against you in terms of like he's a good body puncher and he's got great reach. But for you to work out and devise a way to not only just beat him to the punch, but use dirty tactics. You're my man, mate. You're my man. To do that, and plus another thing as well, you're a student of the game to the extent that you work out your opponent's weaknesses, just like Bud. And just like Bud, you punish him. But he's had more activity than Bud, so he has to be my number one.
Yeah. Ra, you're number one.
I agree with Jay. It's got to be Logan Paul, the only man alive who can beat people from multiple divisions. He's winning multiple sports. No, yeah. Listen,
yeah. He drew with Mayweather. He beat the greatest. He drew with the greatest.
You know my skepticism about Canelo because of that failed drug test earlier, but even with that, I can't argue.
Yeah, but 90% of boxers, look how many world champions have failed drug tests. You can't really argue that no more. Because half of them have failed drug tests.
You can. Not half of them. No, you can't.
A
lot of them. I reckon a lot of them are clever, Joe. A lot of them are in most sports, and not just boxing. In most sports, they're clever with how they do it. They're all a lot of. There's a lot that ain't, but there is a lot that is. So, how many boxers have failed drug tests, but they let them back in?
I do agree with you. I do suspect that probably a lot more.
Oh yeah, of course.
Including our heroes. I mean, look, Evander Holyfield. Look at the shape of his neck and traps when he fought Riddick Bowe. The visual difference in his physique. It was obvious there was something unusual there. It was never proven. He never failed a test. I get it, and that's why I've relented on Canelo. I just think even if he has had some extra help, probably a whole load of his rivals have as well. It is what it is. Yeah, you can't argue with the volume of his work. That said, I do maintain that if Bud Crawford beats Spence, he leapfrogs him, and if Usyk defeats Tyson Fury, he leapfrogs him. So the pound for pound list, as you know, like any other rankings, it can change on one.
Yeah,
So,
what about if Canelo wins the cruiserweight WBC cruiserweight title? That's got to cement
he stays where he is. He stays as.
No, I disagree.
Why don't he go fight a Coley then? Why can't he fight a Coley then?
Exactly. I don't cement it for me. It don't really bother me.
Yeah, but you got to be smart. Really. Roy Jones Jr. is known as the greatest, but he was smarter who he fought. He didn't fight the biggest heavyweight. He fought John Ruiz, didn't he? John Ruiz was a small heavyweight.
And what a mistake
He's not there to stay there. Well, no, because he made history of going up to heavyweight from middleweight, didn't he? It's just making
that was a massive mistake for him. Because as soon as he done
Canelo
that,
will come back down like he.
But you say that.
Yeah, but Canelo proved it when he fought Kovalev, when he went up to light heavyweight.
Yeah, but light heavyweight
and he went back down to super middleweight and dominated.
Cruiserweight. Light heavyweight is very, very different.
But one fight, I don't think one.
But you can say that for Roy Jones because Roy Jones was never the same fighter because he couldn't get back down to his prime weight.
Because he went up too many weights. So I think if he goes to cruiserweight, he's only going to fall back down to light heavyweight, and it's going to probably put him in good stead for the light heavyweight fights. If he was going down 2 or 3 weights, then maybe. But I think Roy Jones went down 2 or 3 weights, didn't he? After heavyweight, he kept going back down.
But so why do we need to have this? Why do you need to have it? Why don't you just want to be a champion and defend your champion, but defend your belts? Be like Marvin Hagler.
Yeah, but to be a Mexican legend, there's been so many great fighters. There's not many records where you can set yourself apart, and he's going to become the first ever 5-weight Mexican world champion. So I think that's why he wants to do that.
It's just numbers.
That's my personal opinion.
It's just numbers. I think.
Yeah, but when you get to the top, when you get to the top, that's what happens. Yeah, that's true. I think once you get to a certain level, Canelo's elite. He's an elite of elite. But he's at that stage now where just winning a world title doesn't mean anything to him. It's got to have some sort of extra meaning behind it. You see some fighters, their peak is one world title when their career's done, they're happy with that. Canelo is a different mindset where what can I do to change history and make my name be in the history books along with great other fighters like Chavez Sr. Like that guy was an absolute Mexican beast, but he could do something. But is he the weakest champion? Is all world champions are good, aren't they? There's a lot of good fighters who don't even become world champions.
You've only got to watch the fight where he won the world title, though.
Yeah, no, that's true. Tony Bell, you beat him,
the
but
time is off.
But Canelo is a smart businessman. He's not going to go in with a Coley. Someone who's going to have a much bigger height than what Makubu has.
Yeah, but
not Canelo. Let's be right.
But Joe's right. How can you
He's not going to fight Breeders, is he?
All right, fair enough. But how's he going to celebrate beating this guy? Come on, man. I mean, there's cherry picking, but this is cherry picking. He's cherry picking.
Yeah, but that's a bit disrespectful to Makabu. Come on, look, Makabu. He's a world champion for the WBC.
He's world champion.
Not be happy with beating him.
All right, fight the best fighter at cruiserweight then.
Or don't forget about cruiserweight. Fight the best fighter at light heavy and fight Beterbiev, which for me is one of the best fights that can be made for it out of any weight division.
But you got to put it into boxing politics. Canelo's very good with the WBC. The WBC have accepted the fight with Makubu. The other organisations probably wouldn't let him fight any of the other champions because they'd probably say no.
Yeah, but Beterbiev's WBC champion as well. Beterbiev's WBC light heavyweight champion.
Yeah, but cruiserweight makes him the top five weight world, first ever Mexican 5-weight world champion. That's the point. That's what I'm saying.
Really,
Joe, he's already fought at heavyweight.
That, politics don't do.
Yeah, but Canelo does.
To do with
Canelo.
Yeah, but we're talking about pound for pound lists, and politics doesn't. Business and politics don't change pound for pound lists for me. Ra, what's your opinion?
I agree with you. I don't think winning this WBC belt adds much to his pound for pound credentials. But it's an extra tick box for the record books. So when you look back at his career, the overall body of achievements, it's an extra achievement. But as it stands now, because he's a weak champion and not really considered the man at the division, I don't think it adds to his pound for pound credentials much. What I think would really add to his credentials is becoming unified or undisputed at light heavyweight. I think that the fight with Beterbiev would be easy to make because Beterbiev don't earn much. Brilliant though he is. I think Canelo will probably go back down to light heavyweight after this. He's just dipping his toe. Again, like I said, just as a tick box. Yeah, 5-weight world champion, just like Sugar Ray Leonard, who incidentally won his 5th world title against Donnie Lalonde. So picking an easy opponent.
I stayed up and watched that.
No, really? I agree.
No, I mean,
I think it's
no, you know what it was. It was good action. To a certain extent that he got put down by by a right hand to the top of the head, and then he came back. There's no doubt that Donnie Lalonde wasn't the strongest, one of the best light heavyweights out there. But he worked to me. I mean, it was good. It was good entertainment.
This is what the Canelo Makubu fight will be like. When you look back at Canelo's greatness, it won't be just because of that. It'll be more the overall work. Just like Leonard's greatness, it ain't because he beat Donnie Lalonde and became a 5-weight world champion. It's because he beat Hagler, Duran, Hearns. It's those fights that people remember his real greatness as, not just a few statistics.
Just a year ago, Callum Smith unbeaten super middleweight, Billy Joe Saunders in the UK. We couldn't rave high enough about them, and rightly so. They had a great career up to them. And Canelo used to beat these guys at super middleweight, these high champions. And I just think you got to remember these athletes when they get to a level, they need something else to motivate them. And Canelo's won so many titles. You got to say, like, he ain't really thinking about what the fans want. He's got to think about what he wants to motivate him to carry on being a fantastic boxer. And to him, look, Ken, it's a challenge. Look, people, Makubu is bigger than Canelo in size, and he's got a hard punch. Look, you can't just disrespect someone. I think it's quite disrespectful. People overlooking him like that. I'm not saying that he's going to beat Canelo, but the guys are 2 weights bigger than him. I don't even think Canelo's a natural super middleweight. I think he's probably better at middleweight, if I'm being honest. But still beating these guys. So this guy's 3 weights above him. He's a big guy. He's a big puncher. You can't overlook. I know he lost to Tony Bellew. I know he didn't really beat anyone big for the title, but you got to say it's admirable for him to go there, no matter if it's the weaker of the 4 champions, because the guy's still a fighter. Let's be real.
Yeah, but
if he wants to do that, that's fine. Sorry, Kenny.
Sorry. No, you go on. Yeah.
No, cheers, Ken.
He's already fought Yildirim. Yildirim was a bum. Do you know what I mean? That was a bum. Yildirim,
that's
that
a mandatory challenge.
The fight.
It's a mandatory.
Yeah, but he's a bum.
What I'm saying,
he's about 5 levels below Makubu.
That's fine. If he wants to go and do that, that's fine. But my whole point was, it's not adding to his pound-for-pound credentials.
Yeah, I think it does, because it's another weight category. It goes against other fighters. He's the 5-weight world champion. He's beat world champions at 5 different weight categories. We're talking about, so like, say, Tyson Fury. He's never even defended a heavyweight title. Canelo beating world champions in their own weight classes.
He has defended.
Well, he defended it once against. He defended it against Deontay Wilder.
I hear what you're saying, right? But Makubu, for me, is another Rocky Fielding fight. That's how it looks to me. And look at, you know what I mean? I'm sorry to say
Makubu's better than Rocky Fielding.
A little bit of an upgrade,
Fielding, but Makubu.
A little bit of an upgrade.
Makubu would knock Rocky Fielding out.
Of course, he's going to knock Rocky Fielding out. Nah. Rocky Fielding's a middleweight.
Yeah, but I'm just saying. I think Makubu's a bit better than that.
I hope you're right, and I hope it's a classic fight, and a classic fight. I'm just. I
don't think it's a classic fight. All I'm saying is I can see why Canelo's doing it. For him, he needs to have a sort of motivation to carry on what he wants. Most fighters have won what Canelo had won. Would they carry on? Come on, behave. Like I say, a lot of fighters are happy just to get a world.
You know what? When he's cherry picking like that, there's a school of thought that's hoping that Makubu knocks him out.
Surely
look at the guys he's fought. Is he not allowed to cherry pick? Tell me a fighter that's had better fights than Canelo.
We're talking about pound for pound rankings. If you're talking about pound for pound rankings, you want the best to fight the best. And he's not. And for us, we just think that he should. If he really wants to,
Well, what did Ra say earlier? He's got to give credit
to
the
best in that division.
These smaller guys fighting bigger guys. Canelo's fighting some 3 weights above him. You got to say fair play for that. Like, no matter who he's fighting, he's still pound for pound. He's going up and beating the WBC cruiserweight champion. Like, maybe that says a lot for the cruiserweight division. Maybe the cruiserweight division isn't good if everyone's saying the WBC champion's crap.
Yeah, but he fought a light heavyweight in Kovalev, who previously was a very, very good world champion. Plus, he in a previous life, he was a hard hitter. He hit like a mule, and he's gone and faced. Yeah. He's gone and overcome that light heavyweight. But cruiserweight, we're now allowing him to cherry pick.
Callum Smith, he was the guy. Callum Smith was the guy who beat Canelo. He had the height, the reach. He was unbeaten super middleweight. Callum Smith was good. Canelo beat him up, battered him. Then Billy Joe Saunders. He's the hardest fighter Canelo's going to have. He's skill set. He's slick. Billy Joe Saunders, another unbeaten fighter, 2-weight world champion. Canelo destroyed him, broke his face. He's just gone in and just beat up Caleb Plant, let him toy with him for 10 rounds, and then said, "Look, I'm going to batter you in the 11th round." Took clean out. Like,
that's a bit harsh on Caleb Plant.
It's pound for pound. No, come on, let's be real. He just downloading data. He was just walking around with him, talking. They're having a conversation halfway through the fight, telling each other how much they loved each other. Come on, Canelo just... look, he just waited for the right opportunity. Caleb Plant, look, and let's not get it twisted. These fighters are great fighters. I'm telling you that these fighters, Callum Smith, world class. Billy Joe Saunders, world class. Caleb Plant, world class. Canelo, elite. There's only one or two elite people every 10 years. Floyd Mayweather was the one before Canelo. Canelo's took that reign over. It took him a couple of years after Mayweather went. After he beat Golovkin, whatever way you see it, I think he lost the first one, and I'm a Canelo fan. I thought Triple G won the first fight. I may give Canelo the second fight. Since then, he's had a fire burn under him where he's thought, I am the top dog in boxing. He thought, like Kenny said, I took the biggest. Let's be real. Golovkin was known as probably one of the biggest punchers with Wilder in boxing. He was breaking Kell Brook's face. People were scared of him. And I bet Alvarez thought after that, I'm the dong. And you've seen that. Just because he's beat Callum Smith, people are forgetting how highly rated Callum Smith was. Callum Smith was the guy to beat Canelo. He was the guy at super middleweight. And then so was Billy Joe Saunders. So was Caleb Plant. And he just said, look. And then obviously went up to light heavyweight.
You look at Callum Smith. You're at Callum Smith. You could argue that Callum Smith, that before he fought George Groves, his resume wasn't that high either. You know what I mean?
No, I agree. But I'm just saying what was being said in the boxing world. A lot of people before that fight had Callum Smith to be Canelo's hardest problem.
He lost my fellow Arsenal fan Ryder anyway. So I don't want to talk about Callum Smith.
Agreed. Again.
Yeah, true.
I see you.
True. It was a hard
I see
fight.
you smiling there, Ra. Final word on this, Ra, before we close up.
Well, I don't know why Jay's getting worked up. I think all four of us did actually agree Canelo is number one pound for pound. Usyk and Crawford have to do something.
It was more disrespect to Makubu. It was more disrespect to Makubu.
All right, so Jay's sticking up for Makubu's honour here. And listen,
Ra, sorry, your pound for pound number one's Michael Hunter. Your pound for pound number one's Michael Hunter, and Jay's pound for pound number one is Alungai Makabu.
Yeah.
Hey, they're both small heavyweights, cruiserweights. They should fight each other for the real pound for pound.
Michael Hunter is pound for pound number one bum. Yeah. That's what Michael Hunter is. He's number one for pound bum for turning down.
And you sound weird disrespecting Makabu.
What have you?
No, Makubu never turned down a fight. That's not the argument.
The wrong idea.
He'll turn down a world title opportunity.
Oh, sorry, Ra. Carry on.
It's the same as Dillian White. Dillian White should forget the person, just fight Fury. It don't matter about cash. The world title, ultimate goal.
My view on Hunter isn't that he's so great or that he's even one of the best heavyweights. I just think because styles make fights, and I think Fury is very wary of small heavyweights. Just like Ken Norton was a bogeyman to Muhammad Ali, but nowhere near as great as him. I think it's just that a case of that Hunter, because of his small size, nippiness, movement, he could throw Fury, and I think he could upset him. Don't think he'd be a great heavyweight champ or a dominant heavyweight champ. He'd probably lose the belt pretty soon afterwards. But just against Fury, I think Hunter's one of the guys that I think can upset him. So
I do like Hunter as a fighter.
I put Hunter back in his place.
Ra, can I ask you a question? Right, you know.
No, Ra.
All I was going to ask, fight. You know, you talk. Yeah, but when you talk about Hunter and Fury, are you talking about like kind of the punch that gets that a smaller heavyweight could do to a big man? Is the overhand right? Is that the one you're talking about? Because that every time you've mentioned it, I thought right. Yeah, because I remember. Do you remember Rathman and Lennox Lewis? You know, all those years back.
Yeah.
You know, nearly 20 years ago, where it was Rathman, smaller heavyweight, crouched down, Lennox Lewis, upright start, bang, overhand right. And I think that's why every time you mention Hunter and the small heavyweight, I've always thought Ra's got to be talking about the overhand right, the signature punch that the big man don't see coming, but gets taken out by.
Well, look,
you know what I mean?
Fury, by his own admission, he always said he thinks smaller heavyweights hit harder because he doesn't see their punches coming. Yeah, and look at the way Cunningham dropped him really heavily. And in the same, certain fighters, sometimes it's a certain punch which hurts them more. Look, Henry Cooper nearly knocked out Cassius Clay. But then 10 years later, Muhammad Ali took George Foreman's right hands all night. He didn't see Henry Cooper or Joe Frazier's left hook coming from below him. And that's why he almost got knocked out by those two smaller heavyweights left hooks. But George Foreman and Sonny Liston, who were much bigger punchers, he saw their right hands coming at him. And he never did get knocked out by them. So, and I think it's a similar situation for Fury. He's concerned when he comes up against fast, small heavyweights. And he'll be weary. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Hunter or Usyk will knock him out. But I think that they will get through to him a lot more than he's used to, especially if he is slowing down, as some people are speculating.
No, brilliant.
And that's why Dillian could cause him some problems then, because he's a bit smaller.
Yeah, he could do. He could do, but he's still a very bulky heavyweight, isn't he?
I think with Dillian, what Dillian needs to work on, if he's going to trouble Tyson Fury, he's got to work on that right hand, because I think he's developing on the right hand, and it's getting better and better. And I think that's because we all know about the left hook, but his right hand's underrated. I think that's what he needs to use more in his fights. I do think
Dillian's got a good windmill. He's got a good windmill punch over the top, so I think that's what I think Tyson Fury would get hit with. Like Ra saying, a smaller, shorter guy coming upwards is gonna, and I think Dillian's got Dillian puts his head down and he windmills it.
Yeah, because that's the sort of punch where it just takes you out clean out of your feet and you can't get up. I've seen it many times. That overhand right shorter fight where you just what's that?
The second Chisora White fight comes to mind.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Just but you look at loads of fights over the years. That overhand right that you don't see is one of the most devastating punches out there, mate. And people say it's a lucky punch, but it's actually a punch that you actually deserve to get, because careless fighters, when you're careless, you're upright and you're underestimating a smaller man, thinking you could just so sit on him, then you deserve what you get, mate. A clean knockout. You know what I mean? And and that's one of the things. Maybe there is a method in Ra's madness in saying that the smaller guy, is a kryptonite for the big 6 or 7 lads.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Yeah,
I completely agree that the smaller guys are the kryptonite, but I just don't think Michael Hunter's the one to do it, just because, just from his performance, mainly against Povetkin. He had Povetkin.
But some great
in the
fighters.
first round.
The thing is, Joe, over the years,
he didn't get the job done.
Okay. Over the years, the great fighters with the great reputations, it could be a fight that they overlook. It's just their kryptonite and just think, you know what?
Oh yeah,
they can beat me. I mean, I know it's not really great fight, but do you remember Kirkland Lang? His kryptonite was Colin Jones. Remember that, Rob? Colin Jones and Kirkland Lang back in the early 80s, when Kirkland Lang had all the ability. He beat Roberto Duran, and he was knocking out. He was boxing the head off Colin Jones, but Colin Jones was a kryptonite because Kirkland Lang ran out of gas. Colin Jones still had stuff in the tank, and he managed to finish him off twice in both the first fight and a rematch, because ability wise, Kirkland Lang shouldn't wipe the floor with Colin Jones, but sometimes it's that fighter that is your kryptonite.
Yeah.
No, I love that, gents. Thank you very much. We'll close that there. Until next time. It's certainly been fun. Pound for pound top fives, some debate.
One thing I would leave you guys with as well.
Go on, Kenny.
There is a method in your madness regarding Jake Paul, because I was looking at Jake Paul a bit closely, and he's a big lad. I look at the opponent's Tony Fury fights, and I think perhaps he is there on reputation and less on ability. So
Yeah.
I'm not ruling
Roll
out.
on
I'm not
December
ruling
8th.
out.
Yeah.
I'm not ruling out
on
anything.
I'm really looking forward to it.
I
Strangely
was
enough,
seeing
I'm
John
really
Fury. I was seeing John Fury.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good. Ra, Kenny, Jay, thanks very much for joining me today.
Always a pleasure, gents.
Enjoy myself.
Jay, let us know where people can find you.
Yeah, Instagram. You can see it at the bottom. Just check it out. JLB1989, and obviously on here as well. So yeah, good to speak to you guys again. It's great to see what happens at the weekend on the Zone show, and hopefully speak next week.
100%, Kenny.
Well, you'll find me on Instagram and Twitter as at KennyKen1972. Also, you'll find me probably, laughing when I'm watching the highlights of the Tottenham game. But if you don't find me on there, I'm probably having a go at Arsenal fans. I'm probably having a go at Arsenal fans for saying that
Hey,
Liverpool
Ken.
away is a free hit.
Ken, have you heard what
Yeah.
Conte said tonight? He says, I'm 3 weeks
No, I
in, I
didn't.
realise the situation ain't great. So he's already saying that he realises how bad Tottenham is already after 3 weeks. So yeah, that
You know
ain't
what? I'm
looking
not
good.
saying
So.
I'm not saying anything. Right? When Spurs have got players like Harry Kane and Song, and once they get lead in the pencil, I worry. When they got lead in the pencil,
Sir Michael Caine ain't doing
fan,
nothing at the moment.
As an Arsenal fan, I'm not in a position to criticise anyone. The only time I'm going to start shouting the odds is when Arsenal start winning titles like we did under Arsene Wenger and George Graham. Until then, I'm just going to play a straight back.
Who'd have
Joe,
thought
keep quiet because West Ham, mighty West Ham.
Yeah, exactly. Straight through today. Straight through. Watch that. It weren't the best performance, but we got the job done. 2-0. And
Look at him,
straight through.
Look at him.
To March,
He's going to say,
who'd have thought we've got a Man
Bobby
U
Moore
fan, an
days,
Arsenal
ain't it?
fan, a Tottenham fan, and a West Ham fan, and the West Ham fans gloating. Thank you very much, Rob. Where can people find you on social media?
Well, guess what? We're through to the last 16 of the Champions League, Joe. United through to the last 16 of the Champions League, mate. We're all good.
No, United aren't
stage.
through.
We don't care about the league.
Last 16. Ronaldo's through to the last 16 because he actually plays.
Yeah, that's all we need.
Yeah.
I'll guarantee
Sorry,
the summer we take Son off Tottenham's hands. We take Son off Tottenham's hands.
I think someone needs to put Harry Kane out of his misery. Yeah, if you want to check out my Instagram, it's ra_Hokum. Look out for some interviews. I might be joining you, Joe, in the media world soon, but I can't talk too much about it because I'm sort of still on trial, if you know what I mean. So
good stuff, man. Let us know when you are, and we'll certainly promote it all where we can. But thank you very much for joining us today, and we will speak to you soon. Let us know what you think, and let us know your pound for pound top 5. We'll see you.